Hello, friends, and welcome back to Scaling Stories. Today, I've got some more highly upvoted posts from Best of Redditor updates for you all. Like always, I'll be reading you the posts and giving you my opinions, and I'll also be working on building up my Forever World at the same time, so I hope you enjoy. Also, I'm currently only in Spotify's creator program, so watching on there would help me out a ton. Thank you so much for your support. Today's first story comes from the Off My Chest subreddit. It was posted by Throwaway34455 on April 17th, 2022, and was titled, Found Out My 46 Female, Ex-Husband, 47 Male, Has Been Banging My Sister, 35 Female, for the last year. So, yeah, I needed to get this off my chest. It's thrown me for a loop. I was with my husband since I was 21. We got divorced 2.5 years ago. We just grew apart and mutually agreed that the best thing for us was to go our separate ways. It was relatively amicable, as these things go. We have 3 boys, 22, 19, and 16. My sister also is in the process of a divorce. Her soon-to-be ex was cheating on her with a coworker of his. My sister has 2 kids, 10 male and 6 female. Apparently, one night last year after my cousin's birthday party, the 2 of them ended up having sex. I remember the night because my sister showed up in a very revealing outfit and was turning heads all night. Little did I know, one of the heads she turned belonged to my ex-husband. They've been sleeping together off and on ever since. I know they're both adults, and neither is in a relationship, but it still seems weird to me, and I don't understand why my sister would go there. For that matter, I don't understand why my ex would do this. He is a really attractive man. He always has been. He shouldn't have much trouble finding a woman to date, yet he chose my sister? Perhaps he's more angry about our divorce than I thought? My niece mentioned to me that he's been around with mommy a lot, so I asked about it, and he just flat out admitted what's been going on. When I confronted my sister, she didn't even try to deny it and said they're both adults and they're not hurting anyone. According to her, it's just sexual, and there are no intentions of them being together as a couple. I don't know why this has bothered me this much. Maybe because when I met my husband, we were in college and my sister was in elementary school. Were they looking at each other while they were both married? I asked both of them if they ever messed around while we were married, and they both denied it. Maybe I'm foolish, but I believe them. Now here are some of the top/relevant comments from the original post. Commenter 1 says, Sounds terrible for you. Having crappy siblings is hard. Good luck. OP says, Thanks. We were never super close because of the age difference, but this is something I never expected could happen. I'm more disappointed in my ex, to be honest. My sister was always a spoiled brat who wanted her way no matter what. I don't know what is going through his mind though. Commenter 2 says, This is disturbing that 1. Your sister is sleeping with the father of your children, and 2. Your sister is sleeping with the uncle of her children. That's not okay, in my opinion. OP says, Ugh. Her kids are so young. I doubt they have any idea of what's going on. All they seem to know is that their uncle comes around from time to time. What a great Easter this turned out to be. Vomit emoji. Commenter 3 says, Both of them are trash. I'm so sorry this is happening to you. Must be weird for your kids to have their dad hooking up with their aunt. Yikes. OP says, I'm pretty sure none of my boys are aware. Yet. Commenter 4 says, I believe it's normal that this would bother anyone, because, as you mentioned, you asked if anything happened before between them. It would make anyone reevaluate past exchanges, possible red flags, etc. So, to me, it's understandable to feel that way, even if you're okay with it. They could be telling the truth, and maybe you trust both of them before this. But that's why, when this happens, an ex and a sibling having sex after, it makes it complicated. The not knowing if you've been a fool, been lied to, etc. Even if what they are doing is innocent and nothing happened in the past, they both should have thought about it too. Because if you're wondering this, others will too. It's just reality. And what if it does turn into a relationship, as most repeated sexual encounters do? It might be worth exploring this with a counselor, just so you have someone you can talk to regularly. Just so you can get an alternate third-party perspective, and an outlet for discussing this without other family and friends getting involved. OP says, One reason I really don't believe they did anything while my husband and I were married is because while we were married, we both had access to each other's phones, computers, etc. It would have been nearly impossible for them to hide something like this while he and I were still living together. As I posted, our divorce was basically because of two people who had grown apart, and, to be honest, we weren't in love anymore. There was no anger or anything like that. We just agreed to go our separate ways. ScalingStories Corner. Okay, so legitimately, I was actually so stunned upon reading the post initially that I felt like I had to go for the comments and replies first. But I'm not even sure if that helped me form an opinion. My initial thoughts were like, okay, OP and her ex-husband broke things off peacefully. He should be allowed to find love wherever he finds it. But then I'm like, but maybe not with OP's sister? Literally anyone else in the world? Or not literally everyone else in the world, like not OP's mom or dad and other relatives and stuff. But like, yeah, literally not her sister. And even if it was totally non-cheating and stuff like that, it's just super messy to be hooking up with someone else in the family because of the children aspect. Like, OP's sons, if they find out, when they find out, are just gonna be like, dad is sleeping with auntie. And then let's say OP's ex-husband and sister do become a couple, despite them saying they've only been in it together purely for the sex. Then it's like, oh, wow, my dad is now also my uncle, but he's still my dad, but now he's also a dad to my cousins. Like, I'm personally really dizzy thinking about it. I definitely think OP's sister and ex-husband should have had more common sense and self-control to keep it in their pants and find literally anyone else on the planet to have a relationship with. Update 5 months, 2 weeks later. I made a post on here a while ago about my ex-husband and sister sleeping together, and a lot has happened since then. I took some of the advice from the comments and have decided to go no contact with my sister and low contact with my ex-husband for the sake of our youngest, 16 male son. I called both of them over to my house and informed them of this and that even if they thought that they weren't hurting anyone, that they were hurting me, and it genuinely made me feel disgusted to think that they would choose each other out of everyone in the world. I said, while I believe they never slept together while we were married, as they said, I don't believe that the thought was never there, and two people who claim to love me would never do this to me. I explained to my sister that even if they didn't plan for things to go beyond sex, that the fact that she would do this to me meant I could no longer have contact with her or her children, because if it ever became something more, I would be even more hurt by what she was doing. I told my ex that I would like to only communicate through a parenting app, which some of you suggested, until our youngest was of age, and then I would be as minimal contact as possible from then on. I asked him if he was doing this to hurt me, which he denied. I asked how long he had these feelings for my sister, and he said it just happened. I talked to my kids about this, not to turn them against their father, but to inform them of my reasons for going no contact and low contact with their aunt and father, and so they can make their own decision and talk about how they feel. All three were livid and have talked about going no contact with their father as well, but I encouraged them to take time and think about it and to not think they needed to do this just because I was. As you can imagine, a 19-year-old and a 16-year-old are not the best at keeping secrets, so word got around the family and town we live in, which is fairly small. Apparently, a lot of other people thought that this relationship was wrong as well. Something I never expected, though, was the reaction from my parents. My father went off on my sister, asking how she could do this. Why would she do this? My mother was more concerned about the age gap, as I said. When my ex and I were in college, my sister was in elementary school. They informed her that as long as she continued this relationship with my ex, he nor she were welcome in their home. Also, people have started to speculate that they were sleeping together way before either of our divorces, and saying that this is the reason her husband was cheating on her and may have been the reason for mine and my ex's as well. Like I said, I choose to believe them when they said they didn't, but I guess you never know. They attempted to defend themselves for a while, but eventually they cut contact and began avoiding each other like the plague, I guess, in an attempt to curb any more weird looks or snide comments about them being a homewrecker and a creep. My sister did give me somewhat of an apology, saying she really didn't think that I would have minded since we ended on okay terms, which I don't fully believe because they went out of their way to keep it a secret, but I informed her that I'm still sticking to being no contact with her for the time being. My ex's relationship with our sons is still strained. He asked if I could speak to them, but seeing as the oldest are adults, there isn't much I can do. Our 16-year-old still visits with his father once a month, if he wants to, but most of the time, he doesn't, and we both agreed he's old enough to make the choice himself. So that's pretty much it. I still don't know how I feel about all of this. It sucks that I can no longer see my sister the same way and that my children's relationship with their father has come to this, but I guess this is my life now. There is still so much about the situation that I want to, but may never, know, and maybe that's for the best. Thank you to all those who commented on the original post and for all the words of encouragement. You all really helped me realize that what they were doing was wrong, and for myself, I didn't need them in my life. ScalingStories Corner. I actually forgot about the age gap situation for a while. Because at first, I think I was like, okay, OP's sister was like 35 and OP's ex-husband was like 46. And I was like, oh, they're both well past being adults. But then that's only if they met at the current time. But when OP's mom was like, he knew her daughter when she was still in elementary school, I was like, oh my God, right. OP and her ex-husband were together when they were 21. So he also knew her sister when she was still in like grade school. So yeah, that was some super weird optics for sure. I'm not sure why that went over my head, even though I was reading over it. But yeah, real talk. The consequences of OP's sister and ex-husband are pretty much entirely their own fault. The kids no longer wanting to talk to their dad and the whole town gossiping about them. I mean, they definitely should have known better, and I think that they did know better but chose not to act accordingly because they were hiding their relationship from everyone. So if they're hiding it, it tells me that they know it didn't look good. Now here are some of the top/relevant comments from the update post. Commenter 1 says, they really couldn't find other people for sex? Their lives have blown up pretty spectacularly. I'm not sure what else they expected. And your mom's right, the 12-year age gap is concerning, considering how long your ex has been a part of your sister's life. Commenter 2 says, they knew what they were doing, and they are just mad they got caught. And, as the consequences for your ex's actions, your sons barely want anything to do with him. That's the best way to be. Just think about it. What he's doing with your sister, he can do to one of their girlfriends behind their backs, so they're taking this as a learning lesson. Commenter 3, downvoted, says, I'm confused. You were able to talk to your adult kids to tell them about how to low contact/no contact with their dad, but when he asked if you could talk to them because their relationship is now effed, you're like, they're adults. I can't do anything? Lol. OP says, I wanted to explain to them why I was going no contact/low contact with their father. As I said, we have had a pretty okay relationship after the divorce, and this was a drastic change, especially for my youngest, and I didn't want to just leave them in the dark. Perhaps I could have talked about it with my ex present, but that just isn't how it happened, and I can admit I may have jumped the gun. That being said, I can't force them to listen or reach out to their father. I have already told them that they didn't need to feel like they had to cut him off. One commenter said something similar to them, as they said something about calling their aunt stepmom or being brother cousins and some other sort of Sweet Home Alabama type things. My oldest was more caught up on the age difference, as there are photos of my ex and sister when she was little and we were in college and she was still small. They are their own people and have their own beliefs on what they think is right and wrong. So, no, I'm not going to force a sit down with their father. I've made it clear that they are free to have their own opinion and can choose who they want in their lives, and I'm not going to take the choice away. Perhaps one day they will reconcile, but that will be up to them. Okay, friends, so that concludes our first story of the day. Next up, we have a story from the relationships subreddit. It was posted by binksthr on July 24th, 2015, and was titled, My 22 female, boyfriend, 24 male, wants me to fill out a form if I'm upset about something. I've been with Jack for 1 year and 1 month now. Our relationship is a unique one because of my boyfriend's way of dealing with issues. He's an incredibly logical and organized person. He likes order and categories and lists. It's one of the things I've always adored about him and found incredibly interesting. He doesn't see the world the way other people do. He amazes me. He'll create spreadsheets and diagrams to work out the best way of commuting to work. If he has to make a decision, he makes pretty much a folder of paper with information to help him make his decision. He'll make lists of pros and cons. He'll read books. He'll create comparative diagrams and pie charts and all sorts of stuff. He's so incredibly thorough about everything. I've never known him to make a mistake in his life. He solves problems in a flash. If I come to him with a problem, for example, a woman at work is upsetting me, he'll sit down with me and create a mind map of all the options. Then we'll work out the risk/reward of each option, then decide on the solution, then decide how to stop it happening again, etc. He loves everything to be on paper and to be thought through. He's passionate about it. This is going to be a bit of background info, but it does explain his behavior. When Jack was 16, he was in an emotionally abusive relationship with a very manipulative and horrible girl. She was irrational, impossible to reason with, scheming. She'd twist his words and make him out to be an awful person. Every day, he was at blame for something, and he could never do anything right to her. After 2 years, they broke up, and he recognized that he'd been in an abusive relationship, and he came up with a solution, as he always does. So he read a ton of books, visited a therapist, did a lot of research. He's pretty much an expert on relationships and people. He has created a million different theories, approaches, and methods of dealing with problems. He has created categories and labels for every kind of behavior and interaction between people. He could write books on it. He could teach this stuff. He could be a psychologist. It astounds me, the amazing things he comes up with. The way he manages to put things into words and explain them so eloquently is mind-blowing to me. He's so incredibly intelligent. He can read people and situations so well. He's like Sheldon Cooper, but he can apply his intelligence to dealing with people, which led him to come up with this form. If I'm upset, annoyed, if there's any kind of problem between me and Jack, I have to fill out a form. It's very detailed and thorough. I have to identify the specific behavior that has upset me, why it has upset me, what my exact emotions are towards it, how I think it can be solved, and how I think it can be avoided in the future. The form is like 3 pages long. I have to classify how bad the problem is by a scale of 1 to 5 at the top of the page. I am not joking. 1 is a mild annoyance that is bugging me. 5 is make or break, deal breaker, seriously hurtful stuff. It's crazy. We have copies of the form in a drawer ready. I've probably filled out this stupid form about 15 times in the time we've been together, so like once every 3 weeks? Is that right? Once I filled out the form, I have to leave it for a few hours and reread it again. By the way, when I'm saying I have to, I mean this is what he suggests I do. He's not forceful about it. I have to adjust how annoyed I am if I've calmed down/gone more upset. If I've missed anything out or decided that something is no longer a problem, I can add it in/cross it out. Then I hand it over to Jack. We don't speak for an hour or two, or however long it takes him to process the information and come up with a response. He validates my feelings, explains his point of view, and then, together, we make a joint decision and compromise on the outcome of the problem. It's a very, very clinical and almost mathematical, does that make sense? Way of sorting out a problem, but it does work. He has given me the form with his problems 5 or 6 times. It is a two-way thing. At first, I found it fascinating, loved the idea, loved how simple and logical it was. I enjoyed filling it out. It helped, and I guess it still helps me to express myself and sort out my feelings and emotions. I do understand myself better as a person. I understand relationships and their problems better. But now it makes me feel like I'm at school or work and I'm filing an official complaint. I feel like he's my head teacher or my boss, and it feels patronizing and stupid to be filling out a form when I'm upset about something. I feel like an idiot handing over the form and waiting for a response. Our relationship is not a product or a maths problem. Everything is about reflecting and processing and solving, and it's just getting annoying and ridiculous. I made the mistake of talking to my friends about it, and now they just take the piss, asking if I'm going to have to fill out a form if I express any annoyance towards Jack. My sisters think he's being controlling, but he's not. Although it's a controlled way of doing things, he has never, ever made me do it or tried to guilt me if I don't want to fill it out. A few times in the last couple of months, I've asked for us to talk about a problem instead of filling in forms, and he agrees, but even when we're talking about it, I know he's just seeing the form in his head and asking me the same questions that are on it. Last week, we got into a huge argument about the form, and I called him abnormal and told him he needed therapy. He said that he's happy and he likes his life under control. He recognized that my feelings about the form are valid. He said that he was always willing to compromise. He said he doesn't want me to feel like he's my boss or teacher, and so he started holding my hand when we discuss a problem and using more pet names and talking more emotionally to me, and we don't use the form for small problems, but I know that he's just applying something to a situation. He's just seeing it as a mathematical problem, and if he does X and Y, then the result will be Z. I've told him this is the way I feel, and he said that he understands why I feel that way, but it's the only way he knows how to be. He wasn't sure what we should do. It was his idea for me to post here. If he was a bad person, he'd be terrifying, but he honestly has a heart of gold. He uses his power for good, so to speak. He has never, ever tried to invalidate my feelings, and his intentions with this form are only to solve our problems. But writing them on a form makes me feel like they're invalidated. It makes me feel like we're a math equation, and he knows all the answers, and I'm a 6-year-old that can't do 2 plus 2. I know the majority of people are just going to say, "You're incompatible, he's crazy, break up." But he's kind of onto something. Like, we do solve our problems fast. We never have repeat problems. But the way we solve our problems has become a problem. Please help. ScalingStories Corner. So it kind of sounds like to me, like OP said, or what she thought people were going to say, that she isn't compatible with her boyfriend. I kind of relate to the boyfriend a bit, but definitely not to his level of organization or analytical stuff. But I really do like my life and days to be organized and like having the pros and cons of a situation and like stuff like that. And I related a lot to the problem solving thing where if I do X and Y, then it'll get me a Z result. And it's like a repeatable process kind of thing. And low key makes me think her boyfriend is like a giga INTJ, but who really knows? But yeah, I think they're just incompatible as people. OP's boyfriend knows how he wants to live his life, and I don't think that's the kind of life OP wants in her relationship. I think she wants to be able to talk with her boyfriend about problems in their relationship or problems in general, and then they both have a conversation about it, and then they can both bond emotionally. It's definitely different if OP has to fill out a form and then OP's boyfriend needs a couple of hours to process what was written and then comes back with the solution to what was written in the form. There's like no emotional bonding going on there, and I can see how that feels very cold and calculated. I don't think that makes OP's boyfriend a bad person. I think that's just the way he is, and I think he would probably thrive in a relationship with someone else who also shared his perspective and shared the same love for the process. Now here are some of the top/relevant comments from the original post. Commenter 1 says, "It's funny that you describe him as brilliant/able to solve any problem, even while describing all the flaws with his system. Humans are not computers, and emotions are inherently irrational. Logical thought is the filter for our emotional core. However, instead of simply filtering his emotion, he's attempting to convert the emotion, distilling it of any risk, any unpredictability. It's a sign of fear, a sign that he's afraid of losing control of the environment. He could write books on it. He could teach this stuff. He could be a psychologist." That's not remotely true because he's completely ignoring the validity of human irrationality in his process. He's actually pigeonholed himself into a lifestyle that denies human nature completely. Here's a way to frame it to him so he understands how he's been manipulative in a way he'll understand. He's used his individual strength in logical argument to persuade, convince, and manipulate you into constructing a relationship around his own strength. That way, every situation will favor him. It's an inherently selfish act, and his inability to acknowledge that is a flaw in his own logic. He's failing to account for the data point that is differences in personality. By framing the relationship around only his intellectual strength, he has invalidated it as a cooperative partnership. Effectively, he sabotaged the relationship to make himself comfortable. I'm not sure you will be able to reach him because, frankly, he is just extraordinarily afraid to be a human. Commenter 2 says, "This is beyond being very logical. This sounds like he could have some developmental/mental issues. Your example of Sheldon Cooper, he's developmentally different. This is not how a healthy emotional relationship can work. He forces you to function as he does, which does invalidate you. Sometimes, very smart people have low emotional or social quotient, and this sounds like that. He must learn to talk to you." Commenter 3 says, "Yeah, this isn't just a guy who likes to be organized. This screams OCD or high-functioning autism." Update 1 month, 2 weeks later. So, it's been a month since my last post here. Here's my original post. I also posted on /self so that I could post a link to the forum and ask for people's opinions on it. I showed my boyfriend the thread, and he said, "Different strokes for different folks." I decided after posting the thread that I wasn't going to break up with him, and that we were just going to use the forum less, in hopes that, in the future, we'll be able to get rid of it completely. Well, 2 weeks later, Jack told me he wanted to buy a new hard drive because his laptop was running really slow. To cut a long story short, he went out, and I logged onto the laptop, determined to fix his laptop before he went and wasted money. What I found were hundreds and hundreds of folders of documentation and data surrounding his life, some of it including our relationship. There was a lot of data about the amount of sex we have, his masturbation habits, things like that. Data about the time he wakes up in the morning, what time he has lunch, the weight of his meals, how many minutes he exercises for, what time he leaves for work. He measures his blood pressure, how many texts he sends a day. Absolutely ridiculous things like that. The data starts in 2010. He's been doing this for 5 years, since he was 19 years old. And I had absolutely no idea. He does spend a lot of time on his laptop and his phone, but whenever I've peered over his shoulder, it has always been innocent/normal things. I almost never sleep over at his house because we both wake each other up constantly, and I guess that's why I've never realized him measuring things. I was really angry when he got home, and we had a huge argument about it because I felt violated that he was collecting data about me and our relationship, and I had no idea. For F's sake, if your partner is going to write down every time you have sex, you would want to know about it. Am I right? He ended up leaving and coming back a few hours later, and we tried to talk about it. He said he's not doing anything wrong because he doesn't show anyone the data, and he doesn't use it for anything malicious. He just likes to see correlations and the relationships between data, and then he showed me all of these charts that he's made from his data. Things like the amount of time he spends exercising compared to how many times we have sex. He also documents how many times he cries, which completely shocked me because I have only seen him cry twice throughout our whole relationship. He says he does experiments, like he makes an effort to text 5 people in a week, and he sees if that makes him happier/helps his friendships or whatever. I was still really angry, so I went home, and I told him I needed some time to think, and then he texted me like 7 times, and I made a chart of how many times he texted me compared to how likely I was to break up with him, which I feel really pathetic about now. I didn't even want to post an update, and I felt we were going to be okay and that I was being stupid about the forum, especially when he was so willing to give it up. But now I feel like an idiot, and I'm at the end of my tether. I feel like a science experiment to him, and I feel like there's a whole side to him that I've never fully seen or been aware of before. If I asked him to go to therapy, would he be able to stop doing his crazy calculations and data gathering? ScalingStories Corner. So that post was from 2015, and OP never made another update after that. So I'm curious what you all think if they stayed together or not. I personally don't think they stayed together after that. It just seemed to me that they were really incompatible as people. And maybe I do have a wrong read on the boyfriend in this situation, but I felt kind of bad that a lot of people were ripping on him for him being overly analytical and like his way of life and stuff. And the update definitely did not help his case at all. But yeah, that's just how he is as a person, I think. He was in an abusive relationship when he was younger, but I think that his problem-solving mindset and the way he goes about things was probably with him his entire life. And he just happened to apply it early on to relationships and people. I do agree that relationships are more than just an equation, and that majority of people are not going to be down for what he's doing. But that's why I think if he can find someone who also shares his love for data and analytics on life, then I think they would thrive together. Now, here are some of the top/relevant comments from the update post. Commenter 1 says, if you want to have a relationship with someone different from your boyfriend, i.e., you want to change him into the person you think he should be, then break up with him and find that person. As a scientist, I'm actually kind of fascinated by his data collection and analysis and would love to ask him questions. Many famous scientists used themselves to experiment on back in the old days. Just the fact that he tracks and correlates data doesn't mean you have a bad relationship, especially if he uses that data to improve the relationship. I know lots of people who journal their lives. At least he's looking for patterns. Commenter 2 says, as an outsider looking in, I don't see this as him treating you like a science experiment. All the data is about him, for him. The only things in there about you are directly related to him. Sex, texting, etc. This habit is a little strange, but I don't even necessarily see it as unhealthy, since he is doing it in an effort to possibly better himself and how he interacts with the world. And since you never even knew about him doing it, it obviously isn't something that has been distracting him from your relationship. Everyone's minds works differently. It would probably cause him great anxiety to have to stop doing this, and I honestly don't understand how it is hurting you at all. Like I said, it is a little strange, but the data is all about him. Filling out the form, I agree, is a little too far because that is affecting you, but what he does himself on his own time regarding the data he keeps up with isn't. I might suggest couples therapy, as it may help you both understand the reasons behind the behavior and your emotions about it. Okay friends, so that concludes today's video. Leave a like and comment down below to let me know what you thought of it, and I'll see you again tomorrow. Take care.